changed the way that I feel, the way that I played. It felt different, but it felt good because it felt like it fit, you know.
Wow. So you basically had to reinvent how you play. I mean, you had to
Absolutely.
seriously. Wow.
No, I had to reinvent how I play. I had to, just throw the clave out the window, and that ended up being something that was a little bit different for the traditional percussionists because they weren't getting the gigs that I was getting because they stuck to the clave and they stuck to that form of playing, and it just didn't sound right, And then I started getting calls like, "You understand what that 2 and 4 is? You understand what the funk is?" I was like, "Yeah, my clave is a 2 and 4. That's all I know."
Wow. That's really interesting because I mean I was going to say to you, why do you think you have been able to? I mean, when you look at your resume, you've managed to play with a super wide range of artists, more than almost any other Latin percussionist I can think of. Quite honestly, and whatever the background. And is that because you think you've just been very adaptable?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I didn't want, I thought that if you came in to do a gig as a percussion player, it's like, looking at a painting on the wall and it's been painted already. Well, they're asking you to add one color on that painting. Well, where are you going to put the color if it's already done? How are you going to fit? That's my job, is to figure out where do I fit. So just because I know stuff that's traditional doesn't mean that I have to apply that for every single thing. It doesn't, you can't win that way. You can't talk to everyone the same way. You can't reach someone with the same speech all the time. You've got to go where they go. So in order to accompany them, is take me out of it and figure out where do I fit in to help you.
When did you play? You played with Marvin during what period?
The last tour, '82.
You were on the tour?
That very last tour I was on.
Did you play Circle Star Theater? Did it start?
Yes, I
I was
did.
there.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I interviewed him the day before.
Wow.
We can talk about that. That was an ill
Ooh,
story.
that's off-camera stuff.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, we'll get into Marvin. That is off camera. Let's talk about your transition into the whole Prince era, because it was very interesting. You had a very strong pedigree, and then you ended up doing. Let me do it this way. You became like a pop star in a different way, but it was still your records had funk to them. I want to ask you about a couple of, like Love Bizarre particularly, which is a Prince record, but it sounds different than almost everything else I think that he's done, because the rhythm of it. Can you talk about that particular record and how that came together?
Well, because we wrote that one together, it's going to sound different. So it sounds different because there's a lot of percussion on it. It started with a drum beat, and then I started adding shakers. So there was a lot of shakers involved in that drum loop. That made it sound different. It drived the song. It made it go somewhere, even though it was halftime. Then it had that train thing, So it was something that was very attractive, So that song started with the drums, and adding the percussion made it different, and then you add the bass line and everything, the melody, and it became what it was.
It's interesting because I think we talked this about, so in doing the funk documentary, people have different opinions of Prince vis-a-vis funk. They all respect him as a musician. I heard some people have said they thought he was anti-funk and that he helped kill funk, because here's what I just because they say he took out the horns, but he put in the keyboard things, and that that's one side. Then sometimes people will say that he was funk, but he hid that. He used it in certain ways, but he didn't want to be ghettoized, as a lot of black artists were. You work with him. What is your take on his relationship to funk, Prince and funk?
Well, the thing is he created his own sound, just like James and Sly and everyone else created their own sound. That sound was, if all he knew was to play, because he produced and wrote and played everything himself, well, so supposedly he doesn't play horns, so if he played keyboards, he's going to have horn sound. He did everything himself, so that's why the sound sounded like that. He didn't kill the horns. He wanted to play everything himself, so obviously, well, I'm going to get a horn patch, and this is what I would play if I had horns. And then when he could afford to have horn players, then he brought in horn players and played. I mean, he's a great making up horn lines, incredible, funky, yeah.
So do you think Alan Leeds told me this story. He said that at the sound checks, that he would do a lot of James Brown during that time. But that's being the show. That I guess what I'm getting at is it's interesting. A lot of the artists in funk is interesting. Sly, it's about taking what's there then how do I add my thing on top of it and not get ghettoized? It just felt like he was unusually successful at jumping over some of the barriers to black artists.
Well, he was definitely, the thing about his music is that he could write